You know, one of the most frustrating things about learning a language, especially if you've been doing this for years, maybe almost a decade since you were in school, is that you are stuck in this purgatory between intermediate levels and the advanced level. And you, my friend, have found yourself in this place called the intermediate plateau. So in this video, I want to talk to you about the three things that you can do to get yourself out of this. So the intermediate plateau is something that is very near and dear to me because I personally am experiencing it in two of the languages that I speak, both in Spanish and Dutch. So I speak Spanish and Dutch at a conversational levels, but I can never get past the advanced level. And why is that? I know exactly why. And that is because I do not have the urgency to use them. My life does not require me to speak Dutch or Spanish on a daily basis because I do not live in a country that speaks these languages. I do not work in an environment that requires me to speak these languages, so I do not have to push. However, unlike me, you have the urgency. You are living abroad, or maybe you are working in an international environment where English is the main language of communication, and you have the push and the urgency to get good at it because your life is dependent on it. And this may feel annoying and this may feel like a lot of pressure, but this is actually the biggest advantage that you have, and you may not be taking advantage of it to the fullest. That urgency, that pressure that you feel is actually your biggest challenge, and you're not fully using it yet. So let's work on that now. So one thing that I want you to understand from this video is this. What got you from A to B will not bring you from B to C. I repeat, what got you from the A levels to the B levels, in beginner to intermediate, will not bring you from the intermediate B levels to the C levels, which is the advanced. So when you're in the beginner level, you learned a lot of things, you picked up a lot of habits, a way of learning a language that were effective enough to get you to this point. It's actually good. They're not bad at all. However, at this point, this level comes with a different set of challenges, and you need to be able to understand that these challenges require a different solution. The things that got you from A to B are actually going to bring to be the biggest blocks that are keeping you from advancing to C. So let's get to the first reason why you are stuck, and that is because you are still stuck in the beginner's mode. So in the beginner's level, you learned a lot of grammar, right? Of course, because that builds a foundation so that you can start building sentences from scratch. And then you also learned new words through translation, right? Because you wouldn't know that the word house means la casa or the word house means rumah or something. You would have to look up the meaning in your native language to be able to understand what this English word means, the house, right? So translating between languages really helped you speed up in learning words in the foreign languages. And also, in the beginner's level, you were very much focused on doing a lot of exams. Maybe because you wanted to do the IELTS or the TOEFL, or maybe because you started off in a classroom, and then exams were a huge part of these classrooms, and then you wanted to be perfect so that you can get good grades. So a lot of these things, they're not bad, they're good to build the foundations, but a lot of these things a lot of these habits that you picked up as a beginner, the translating, the thinking too much about grammar, and also the perfectionism, they actually cause a lot of overthinking at this point. At the intermediate level, overthinking is the biggest block that keeps you from advancing to the C levels. And I know this for a fact because I've been doing this for 5 to 6 years, and I have been speaking to thousands of students, and overthinking really is the biggest block. They're loading too long. They're translating too much in their head. They put so much pressure on themselves to sound perfect that it actually keeps them from speaking at all. So at this point, the easiest thing that you can do is to first be aware of these habits that you are doing unconsciously. And then once you're aware, then you can catch yourself as you're doing it and understand that these are the things that are keeping you stuck. Thinking about grammar, translating, and also putting too much pressure to be perfect. And also, as a beginner, you've probably watched a lot of English learning videos, right? Because you wanted to expand your vocabulary, you wanted to learn how to pronounce certain words. You were watching a lot of YouTube videos that teach you how to speak English. But at this point, you need to graduate a level above that. You need to graduate into watching native content. So basically, content that are made by native speakers to an audience of native speakers or native listeners. you need to start immersing yourself with native content. Because let's say English learning videos are videos that are optimized for learners, for beginners. They simplify their words, they use simpler words so that you understand. So the English in these videos are made easier for you to understand. And you are actually way past that. You really need to start immersing yourself to real content. Books, podcast, series, movies, whatever it is. So the game has changed, your need has changed, your level has changed, so embrace that. Let's think of an analogy, right? Let's say you're learning to ride a bike for the first time. Probably you would want to start with training wheels first, because training wheels help you ride a bicycle by providing you this sense of stability, maybe artificial sense of stability, but it also teaches you how to steer, how to pedal, and then it helps you build that confidence. But then at some point, in order for you to be truly an advanced bike rider, you have to let go of the training wheels. So it's the same. The habits that you picked up as a beginner, you have to let that go. Let the training wheels go. And now we move on to reason number 2 why you're stuck. And that is you do not have enough airtime. So let's take that bicycle analogy again. Let's say you've watched a lot of YouTube videos on how to ride a bicycle. You have read a lot of books, you've read the manuals, you've really studied it, but you cannot truly be able to ride the bike without actually sitting on the bicycle without the training wheels, correct? And that is airtime. You have to get on, you have to fall off, you have to get up again, and then you would probably have to have a little bit of scars here and there, and that's how you get airtime. You learn not by getting more information, but to actually do it. And then you're probably thinking to yourself, look, I'm already living in an English-speaking country. I'm already using English day-to-day in my work to communicate with my colleagues or my bosses or clients. What do you mean I have enough airtime? So let me ask you one thing. When you're speaking in English, let's say with your coworkers, how much do you actually challenge yourself? Or do you actually speak about things that you're very comfortable about speaking? Let's say you only talk about simple things like, oh, how was your weekend? Oh, I did this, I did that. Oh, where are you from? Or this and that. Oh, the boss did this, the boss did that. Maybe you talk about your project on a superficial level. Basically, I'm asking you, when you're speaking in English in your day-to-day life, whether it's work or in your social life, are you actually challenging yourself to talk about things beyond your comfort zone? Because airtime can only push you forward if you challenge yourself to speak about things outside of your comfort zone. So throughout my career, I have spoken to a lot of students or a lot of people in my DM, and one of the kind of demographics that come to me seeking for solution are those who have a partner who speaks English. And people would say that, hey, it's a great thing that you have a partner who speaks English, right? Because then you can actually use it every day and then you're fluent. However, a lot of these people actually come to me complaining that their English level does not necessarily improve just because they're speaking with their partner. Why is that? Because when you're speaking with your partner, it's usually the same repetitive things. Like, oh, what do you want to eat today? Oh, how was your day? How did your day go? Oh, what should we do this weekend? Or how are your parents? It's just like the same, always the same kind of conversation. So of course, you have that airtime, you're actually doing it, but you're not pushing yourself enough. So that's what needs to happen to get you from the B2 level to the C1 level. You have to find yourself in situations where you're challenging yourself when you're speaking. And what do you mean by challenging yourself when you're speaking? That you talk about things that you don't normally talk about in English. You go beyond the simple daily things that you always talk about. You go beyond the small talk. Let's say in your native language, you speak about things that are so complex, that are quite deep. Let's say you care about current world affairs, you care about geopolitics or the economy of your country or news, whatever it is that you love doing. Ask yourself, how often do you speak about this in English? So I see this gap a lot among people who want to join my coaching program. Their biggest bottleneck is speaking about more complex situation at their work, or even more complex topics that they can normally speak about in their native language, but they cannot explain it fully in English. And that is because they don't practice that enough. And to me, these are the airtime that counts. So every conversation where you have to push yourself, challenge yourself to explain a concept to your boss that you don't fully feel comfortable with explaining in English, that is airtime. Or every conversation with your partner where you have to express your deep feelings that are so difficult to articulate, that is airtime. Or maybe you have to explain in English the current situation of your country because you're going through some financial crisis. If you don't feel comfortable explaining that in English but you still push through, that is airtime, and you need to have more of that. But the things that you already feel comfortable about talking, like let's say talking about your day, talking about what you ate, talking about your weekend, that is not enough airtime. So you get what I mean. So that's the second reason that is keeping you stuck in the B2 level. So B2 to C1, that is largely an airtime gap, and you need to close that by having more of those challenging conversations. And now we move on to reason 3, and that is identity shift. Surprisingly, this is the one shift that I don't see a lot of language learning videos out there talk about. This is actually the easiest one that you can do right now. At some point between B2 and C1, something has to change with regards to how you view yourself as a speaker of English. So all this time, maybe as a beginner up to the intermediate level, you've always seen yourself as someone who is learning English, right? You're just studying it from books, you're not fluent, you're just seeing it as like, wow, English is a language. You seem to see it as something mystical. It's like, wow, these native speakers speak so fluently, I would really love to have that. You see yourself as separate from the language. You need to demystify that and start thinking of yourself as a true user of English. And this is something that you can do like literally right this second. And this is not just some woo-woo, some lie that you need to tell yourself, okay? You are actually already a user of English just by watching this video. How come? Because through this video, you're actually accessing another kind of knowledge, right? You're using English as a vehicle to access some knowledge. Basically, you're already using English there. So that itself is an evidence that you are already a user of English, and you need to start thinking and believing yourself as one, and not just this video, right? If you have been reading books in English, reading articles in English, let's say you have been trying to read the world news in English to try to understand what is happening in the world, you're already using English. So there's plenty of evidence that you're already using English in your day-to-day to speak, to express. You use English to write, whatever. And you need to start really embodying that. Here's the thing, having that identity as a learner of English when you're beginning to learn or when you're still learning is actually it's a beautiful thing to see yourself as a learner, because you never stop learning, right? It keeps you humble, it keeps you learning more. So at this point, I'm not asking you to completely let go of that identity, but I need you to evolve a little bit. So if you were 100% a learner, see it like reduce the ratio in how you see yourself. Maybe you're 20% a learner, but then you're also 80% a user. So you still have a lot of room to learn, but you're already becoming that user, that speaker of English, and that really adds so much of your confidence. And also because if you always see yourself as a learner, you're gonna behave like one. You're gonna keep waiting for permission to speak. You're gonna wait until your English is good enough. You're gonna have to really monitor every sentence to make sure that you're saying them correctly. So at some point, in being a user, you want to focus on communicating and using the language to access something else as a means to an end. One thing that I find very beautiful about this is that this is the simplest and the easiest shift that you can do today. And if you don't get a lot of things from this video, at least half that. Change the way that you view yourself. And at this stage, it's not so much about knowing or doing more, but it's about becoming more. And that is available to you right now. So the intermediate plateau, now you have the 3 things that you can start doing, that you can start implementing to get past the B2 level to the C1 level. First is because your approach is in the beginner's mode and then you do not have enough airtime. And 3 is because you haven't had that identity shift yet from a learner to a user. The good news is that a lot of these things don't require you to do more, but it requires you to do things differently. So putting the same effort, but just bit more intentional and more directed. If you want the full system for making the shift, the method, the materials, and the mindset, that is what Anna Almost Native Academy is built around. So the link is in the description box and also in the comments. And the founding member prices is open now for a limited time. Or if you are not ready for that yet, there's also a free quiz that you can do, and it will also give you the blocks that are actually keeping you the most. So thank you so much for watching until the end. I will see you in another video. Until then, take care and bye-bye.